Hello everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to follow up on a trade setup we were looking at in yesterday's MTPredictor training room for MTPredictor customers. But before we get onto the chart, I'd like to start with our risk disclaimer and remind you that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades were taken, they're only shown for illustration and training purposes only. Also remind you all there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. I'll put that another way. All professional traders know and understand, and more importantly accept, that losses can and will and do unfold. It's important to understand that losses can and will and do unfold. All trade decisions are your own sole responsibility. Right, let's get on to the chart. Right, here's the analysis I had on the YM from yesterday. So what I'll basically do is I like to clear this all off. If I go to the 15-minute chart as well, I'll just like to clear that all off as well. And start back where what we were looking at in the training webinar yesterday. We were looking at these setups that came in here at around about 10 to 11, quarter past 11 yesterday, which was the 20th of June. As we can see, our MTP trend indicator was red, therefore indicating these were good trades to take. For you guys who are more experienced, you'll know that we also go out to the higher time frame chart. So let's go out to the 15-minute. Remember, the higher time frame chart is a time frame between 3 and 5 time frames higher. In other words, for a 3-minute chart, it will be the 15-minute. Say for daily, it will be a weekly chart. For say 15-minute Forex, it would be a 60-minute chart. So here the high came in earlier in the day. But let's see whether that came in at DP resistance. We go back, and here's the last or the prior pivot high. So we right mouse click, do a decision point, and that would be a potential resistant area there. So that would be our higher time frame resistance. Let's now go down to our 3-minute chart and see what this looks like. Let's go back to when these trade setups first occurred, which was there. And can you see how we actually had two tops here at our higher time frame resistance? There we go. So that was a good resistance area off which the market was then going to make a downtrend. In fact, actually, if we right mouse click over this DP sell at the high of the day, and I do Elliott wave intermediate, you can see that was also a 5-wave sequence, 1 2 3 4 5 up into the high. So you could have actually taken this DP sell here as well. This DP sell was on a grey MTP trend, so was a valid one to take. Let's just turn training mode off, and you can see that DP sell did indeed come down to its first target there for a nice 2.3 hour profit. But the trade setup I want to look at was this one here. Why? Because it's one of my favourite trade setups. If I turn the training mode on again and we go back to here. What's a Holy Grail trade setup? Well, a Holy Grail trade setup is if I right mouse click here on this red cell bar, whoops, do the analysis, it means that this is likely to be a wave 2. What's a wave 2? Well, we have the start of our Elliott wave sequence. Remember, I use my unique isolation approach to Elliott wave, where we start the sequence at a logical point. In this case, it will be at higher time frame resistance, which would be this DP sell here right at the high of the day. So that would be the start of the sequence. The initial move down would be wave 1. The initial correction that normally subdivides into an ABC would be a wave 2. And the thing I like about wave 2s is if this is indeed a wave 2, then our next target would be the typical wave 3 WPT, which would be right down here. Why is this so good? Well, because a potential profit would be much larger than the initial risk. So remember, losses can and will and do happen. So if this would be a losing trade, you'd risk basically or lose what we call one risk unit. Remember, we use correct position sizing to vary a number of lots, contracts or shares to keep your initial risk small and under control. In this case, less than 2% of a sample $20,000 account. So if I move forward, this will be now taken into a short trade. If this is stopped out, it would be a 1 hour loss. If we get down to the target, it will be plus 6.4 hour profit, or a profit just over 6.5, almost 6.5 times greater than the loss. So that's why I've nicknamed this trade the Holy Grail, not because it has a high percentage of winners, but because when the profitable trades come through, the profits are large in relation to the initial risks. Let's move forward. We actually go up here, and can you see we actually had a double top. The reason we had a double we also then had a history triangle here. The reason there was a history triangle was because it was a double top, so the routines then start to look again. There's actually another TS3 Holy Grail sell setup here, but because we're already short off this first one and not stopped out, you'll still be in this area or still be short here. Market then starts to go down nicely. What I also looked at in our training webinar was the DP off the last swing into the high. This was the high, this was the last swing. So I said that this was an area of where minor support was likely to come in and around here. If I turn training mode off, we can see that is indeed what happened, with the market coming down into this minor support zone before rallying back up. Most importantly, it didn't even get to break even, so you wouldn't have been stopped out if you'd bought your stop to break even after hitting this first minor support zone, and the market then indeed did go down to the first target there for a plus 6.4 hour profit. So were there any other reasons why you'd want to hold your short, particularly while the market is rallying back up here? Well, as usual, let's go to our higher time frame chart. I'll just take that minor one off. Right, here's the last swing into the high. Remember that? This is what I was looking at in our training webinar. So that was the high. This was the last swing into the high. This would have been our DP resistance, or DP support off that low there. So this would have been the area of where the market was likely to go to on our 15-minute time frame. In other words, from the high down into the DP off the last swing into that high. I was looking at this a lot in yesterday's training webinar. So let's now come down to the 3-minute chart and see how that looks on our 3-minute chart. And there you go. Can you see how, even through all this choppy stuff here, we hadn't reached this 15-minute DP support, so therefore the larger trend was down. Also, it'd have had a bit more confidence as well to basically hold this, because look where our typical wave 3 WP target was. It was also in the area of this support zone. So that gave you confidence this was a good target area to go for. We're also looking at a higher time frame or a larger degree analysis on the 24-hour chart on the ES, and we also noticed that the market was actually coming off higher time frame resistance. In other words, major resistance on the 1 hourly chart there on the 24-hour chart. So although we were trading the YM, the ES on the 24-hour chart also had a nice major resistance, and that also gave you added confidence the large degree trend was down. So there you go. That's the result of that particular TS3 sell that we were looking at in the training webinar yesterday. And as you can see, it had a bit of a choppy ride, but it did indeed get back or get down to its first anticipated target of the typical wave 3 WPT, where a profit of plus 6.4 R was available. And hopefully this has been a good video to not only show what the Holy Grail trade setup is in MTPredictor, but how we also gauge it in the context of the large degree trend, and also some other analysis as well. For example, this was a 5-wave sequence up into here. We also know that if the DP from the prior wave 4, which was here, if this was exceeded, then the market would probably retrace the entire prior sequence, which means the start of the sequence, which is back here, which is actually the same DP as your major resistance as well. So that also fits in with our Elliott wave pattern on the 3-minute chart, going up into that high there as well. And also, if we look on the 15-minute chart, there's also a 5-wave sequence going up into here as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that major support zone on the 15-minute chart was also the DP from the prior wave 4. So that also is a logical 15-minute support zone. So hopefully this has been a good video to show how we not just trade our MTP indicators like a black box system where we just use our MTP trend color and just take the setups as is. We look to our higher time frame chart and look for our pattern on the higher time frame chart with our higher time frame DP support and resistance zones. We then come back to the time frame we're trading and then look to try and take trade setups that fit in with that larger degree analysis, all when the pattern's clear. Remembering the cyclical nature of trading dictates that markets going through cycles, so at least half the time markets will not be clear and not in a pattern when they should be traded. A good example is like on the NQ yesterday. There was a lovely VS sell that caught the high of the day. It was just such a pity that was on a blue MTP trend. And also the ES, even though it's chopping down, there weren't many particular trade setups on there. So it was a time when the ES was not clear, but the YM had an absolutely beautiful trade setup, which was our TS3 sell setup there. So hopefully a good video today showing not only our Holy Grail trade setup on the YM, but following up on that particular setup that we were looking at in yesterday's training webinar, and seeing how that fits in our large degree trend analysis as well. And as you can see, a very good result of a plus 6.4R profit.